Tibet's spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, has laid out rules for his succession. A Tibetan exile group will identify the future leader, and the news comes amid tensions with the Chinese government, who insists that only they can choose the next Dalai Lama. Jamie Strachan has the story.
Days before his 90th birthday, the Dalai Lama announced he will have a successor and laid out how they will be chosen. The Gaden Phodrang Trust has sole authority to recognize the future reincarnation, he said. No one else has any such authority to interfere in this matter. That trust is a group of exiled Tibetans appointed by the Dalai Lama more than a decade ago. The Dalai Lama had previously suggested he might be the last in line, but he told followers he reconsidered after consultations with spiritual leaders and appeals from the public.
The whole Buddhist followers, non-Buddhist followers, whosoever is interested in the Dalai Lama institution, they have asked the Dalai Lama to continue.
Beijing is rejecting the plan. China annexed Tibet in 1951 and has tightly controlled the region since, and has long said it will choose the next Dalai Lama.
The reincarnation of the Dalai Lama must adhere to the principle of domestic search and approval by the central government.
Beijing and the Dalai Lama have feuded for years over who will decide about reincarnation.
He represents a vision of freedom for the Tibetan people, which unfortunately the authorities in Beijing see as a threat to their own rule.
Yeah, His Holiness Dalai Lama.
The decision is resonating here at this Toronto temple.
This is us Tibetan people is important, We are continue keep our traditions.
Toronto is home to about half of the roughly 10,000 Tibetans living in Canada, many pushing back on China's involvement.
Why is Dalai Lama so important to you? Leave us alone. You already took our country.
The Dalai Lama promised to leave behind clear instructions, but with two sides claiming authority over what's next, those instructions will clearly face challenges. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
And my next guest calls China's push to control the plan unacceptable. Jeff Braff is a Tibetan monk ordained in Dharamshala, India. He's also a hospital chaplain in Toronto and joins us now from San Francisco. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Of course.
Let's start with this. What's the significance of the Dalai Lama's announcement on his future reincarnation?
It's an incredibly important announcement because he had been wrestling for a number of years with whether, in fact, he would reincarnate. So this announcement is three things that are of importance, really. Number one, that he is going to reincarnate. Number two, that it's going to happen in a free country outside of Tibet, somewhere in the free world, according to his announcement. And number three, that the reincarnation is going to be chosen by a group of monks from Tibet who are now living in India, called the Gaden Phodrang Trust. So China will have nothing to do with the choice of the next Dalai Lama.
And Jeff, this is obviously a very deep spiritual belief for the Tibetans. Help us to understand how the Dalai Lama has been selected historically. I believe he was only 2 years old or 4 years old when this current Dalai Lama was selected.
He was born in 1935 and was selected when he was a very young child. The way it works is a combination of divination and other auspicious signs that have existed for the choices for the Dalai Lama for the past 600 years. And it took about 2 or 3 years to find the Dalai Lama after the death of the 13th Dalai Lama. It's a very involved process that involves tests of the young child, whether the child recognizes certain possessions that the previous Dalai Lama had. And the current Dalai Lama, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, passed all those tests with flying colors. And one can assume that tests similar to that will happen this time around as well.
And Jeff, this is a spiritual transition for a spiritual community, but do you think that it could turn political? Why do you believe China is attempting to influence or control the selection process?
Well, it's already turned political, obviously, and that's really a problem. I think Chinese want to do this because they want to control Tibetan culture, they want to control Tibetan society, they want to control Tibetan religion. And the Dalai Lama is the symbol of Tibetan religion and Tibetan culture and Tibetan society. And if they can control the Dalai Lama, the Chinese figure that they can control part of Tibetans' conscience that they don't control now. And so it's become very political. It should be an entirely religious, socio-cultural decision affecting only Tibetans, but the Chinese feel that they need to be involved in this.
And Jeff, should this remain within the Tibetan community, do you think the Chinese will respect it?
Absolutely not. They've said they wouldn't. They've said they wouldn't as much. And they've done this before with other High Lamas. When the Panchen Lama in the 90s was selected by the Dalai Lama, basically he was kidnapped by the Chinese and has not been heard from to this day. And the Chinese government appointed a false Panchen Lama based on whatever criteria they decided to use. Totally inappropriate.
And Jeff, you were ordained in Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama calls this place home. What conversations are being had within the Tibetan Buddhist community there, which is, really the source of this spiritual tradition?
The conversations are being held not only in Dharamsala, but throughout the Tibetan expat community, which is about 125 or 150,000 people throughout the world, including about 20,000 people in Canada. And basically, Tibetans are, I think, resentful of the fact that their cultural patrimony, their religious patrimony and heritage is being usurped by the Chinese.
Okay, Jeff.
And are not willing to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation will continue, no doubt. Thank you, Jeff, so much for giving us insight today.
Absolutely.
And that was
Thank
Jeff
you very much.
Braff. He is a Tibetan monk joining us from San Francisco.